Hello and welcome to our final lesson in this course. I know this term didn't go the way we expected or ended the way we wanted to, but that's life and we've made it. I know we didn't get to do the dissection this year, but to take Bio 40s next year, hopefully we'll get to do some dissection as well. Okay, so our final topic on the nervous system, like I said, we've gone through this really quickly. Every topic is just so fascinating that we could spend just weeks on each, but hopefully you've at least got a sense of it and an appreciation of your nervous system and your brain. And if you go on further to university or take psychology next year, you have some foundations, and then you can learn and explore more about it in future courses. So the last thing is the central nervous system. We already talked about the central nervous system. I'm wearing the brain again because, well, why not? I can. After today, it'll be weird if I walk around with the brain on my head. So we know that there's two parts to the central nervous system, the brain and the spinal cord. But you actually have another system that's not just your central nervous system. We focus on that a lot. You actually have something called a peripheral nervous system. We know that the word peripheral means like to the side, right? Your peripheral vision to the side. So your central nervous system is your brain and spinal cord. So peripheral would be the nerves extending from that, right? Because your nervous system has to communicate with every single part of your body, right? Your fingers, everything, right? So you have to have a way to get those nerves all the way there. So it has to branch out from that central nervous system to reach every single part of your body. So your peripheral nervous system has two parts, your somatic and your autonomic nerves. Now I fixed it up. I think in your original one, the word sensory and motor were just hanging around somewhere in red. I fixed that up and put them in the proper place. So I will give you an updated version for today's lesson. So your somatic are the ones you can control. So we've already talked about the sensory and motor neurons. Then your autonomic are the ones that you can't control, involuntary. And that's what controls homeostasis. Thank goodness, right? Because if we had to remember to do things like breathe, some of us would be dead automatically, right? Like there's certain things that our body has to do without us thinking about it. So that's where we've got those nerves that just do it automatically to make sure we're doing the functions we need to stay alive. And then under the autonomic nerves, you have a sympathetic and parasympathetic nerve. So we're just going to go through that quickly today. And then I left you with this diagram. It's basically your sympathetic and parasympathetic are opposite to each other. And that's good. That's how we maintain homeostasis. I am going to read through all these quickly because this is a good review of our entire course. You should know what all of these things are. These are all the glands and organs we've studied in previous units. And now you see how they are under control by our nervous system. So the peripheral nervous system controls that. So for the sympathetic, it's going to dilate your pupil. If you do your lab today, you're going to do it and you can test your pupil size when you have it in the darker light. So you'll be testing yourself for that. So the sympathetic dilates it, then the parasympathetic brings it back to normal. You can't always be, this is homeostasis, right? You need that balance. If you kind of overdo it in one, you have to bring it back to normal. So it's really fascinating how these two systems connect to each other. The sympathetic inhibits saliva flow, our digestive system. We learned about saliva. So the sympathetic inhibits it and the parasympathetic stimulates it. Heartbeat. We had the whole unit about the heart and circulatory system. So our sympathetic increases our heartbeat. You've done labs where you tested yourself for activities that raised your heartbeat. So you know that when your heart rate raises, it doesn't stay that way because that would be dangerous. So after it's accelerated, then the parasympathetic brings it back to its normal resting one. Bronchioles and bronchi, we learned about that in our respiratory system. So the sympathetic dilates it, and then the parasympathetic constricts it, so brings them back. Then we talk about peristalsis and secretion, again, our digestive system. We actually started that. We were still together when we started that unit. That seems like a lifetime ago. So the sympathetic would inhibit peristalsis and secretion, and then your parasympathetic stimulates it. Glycogen to glucose. We remember our Krebs cycle. We did learn that when we were still here together. So your sympathetic system converts glycogen to glucose, and then the parasympathetic stimulates the release of bile. Then the secretion of adrenaline and noradrenaline, that's your sympathetic system. We just learned about that in the endocrine system not too long ago. And then the bladder, or urinary system, we just finished that. So the sympathetic inhibits the bladder contraction and parasympathetic contracts it. So I wouldn't expect you to memorize that even if we were together, but this just shows everything we've studied in the body, and we see how it's under the control of the nervous system. And then for today's assignment, I've left you with this lab. There's no lab write-up, but I really encourage you to test out these activities. It's fun. It's always a nice lab to do right at the end of the course because it's a fun one to test. So I do encourage you to test it. So we're going to learn about your visual perception, and we didn't study the eye too much, but that is connected to the nervous system. So retaining images. This is a really neat one. You color one image and leave one blank. If you stare at it, The blank one will look colored. I won't give away the answer to what colors you see, but try it. It's a really fun one. And then eye dominance. We know about hand dominance. I'm right-handed, so you know if you're right-handed or left-handed, but we each have an eye dominance as well. So test that out. It's fun to see which eye is dominant for you. Blind spot, that's an important one to know, especially as drivers. You hear about blind spots, right? So you can test yourself to see where your blind spot is. And something called stereoscopic vision. There's a few things you can test yourself that show what stereoscopic vision is. So even though there's no lab write-up, I really encourage you to test them out. It won't take that long, and they're really neat, fun things to do. So I know you have a couple more things to finish up. Remember, we do have our class call tomorrow. That'll be our final class call, and then I've left Fridays kind of a catch-up day, the last day to hand it and submit work. So just want to thank all of you for sticking this out. Like I said, this is not how we thought. No one could have predicted this is how this term would have went, but congratulations to all of you that you've been doing your homework and staying on top of things and doing the best you can. We've all learned things, how to do things differently, and how we teach and how we learn. So thank you to all of you for all of your encouragement, your help, and your support, and for still maintaining learning during this process. So good luck, and I'll talk to you tomorrow in our class call.